So, namaskar. I want to begin by talking about three ways in which we can enlighten. There are three main vehicles or realms in which we exist. That is our the physical sphere of our life, the mental sphere of our life, and the spiritual sphere of our life. And so when we create dynamism, when we create energy, when we create movement in all three of these spheres, then naturally our life is going to flow along, be blissful, and everything is going to just work and flow. Welcome, John Andre. Welcome. Let me know where you guys are from. Drop a hello in the chat if you are here. So, mentally, we need to prepare ourselves. Mentally, we need to undergo these practices of meditation, these different practices which we can do in order to uplift our mental sphere. We can also we can uplift, purify, strengthen our physical sphere as well, and also our emotional or spiritual arena of our life. So, in all three of these, when we are aware deeply, moment to moment, of all three of these, and when we have energized, when we have mobilized, when we have made the energy, we've caused the energy to begin to move and released all these blockages and stagnations, then we can really begin to make spiritual progress. Ultimately, this is what spirituality is about. It's about becoming alive again, spirits, to become not just dead, lifeless matter, but to more and more awaken that portion that already exists within us, that is alive and mobile and and energized. What do you believe about the afterlife? I think that we shouldn't believe in anything, because the moment that we begin to believe in something, then we have lost some mobility of our mind, right? Because when we get stuck in a certain way of of thinking, then we're no longer growing, we're no longer moving. Ultimately, the essence of life, of the cosmos itself, is movement, is change, is flowing. You believe that you are a spirit. How is that not a belief? Well, I think we have to first understand, what do I mean by spirits? When I refer to spirits, I don't refer to something with which I have not experienced. When I refer to spirits, throughout all of history, the thousands of years that we've existed on this planet, there have been five elements that have been described. You can call it earth, water, fire, air, and ether. In modern day science, you can call this uh, solid, liquid, gas, plasma, electricity. This electricity one, this fifth one, this is what basically all of the ancient pantheons, what they referred to as what they often classified as the main attributes of the chief deity within their pantheon. That is a lightning god, some god connected to electricity. So when I refer to spirits, I refer to that within us which animates us, which is what? That is the electricity that moves through us. They didn't have a word for electricity, and so they might have referred to it as spirits. And this is not the sole definition which I would ascribe to spirit, but this is one. So when I say the spirit within me, I'm talking about the emotion, our emotional reality, the emotion, the energy motion within our body, which is also related to our bioelectrical self, our bioelectrical beingness. So just the fact that I can will this with my hand, that is by virtue of, you could say, the spirit, but it's just the electrical signals which I am willing this thing to happen into reality. So you believe the descriptions of human experience throughout history. Do you believe the Bible is a historically accurate record of human experience? Well, I don't like to confine myself to one culture or one tradition, because I think that we find underlying truth and the deepest and the most profound underlying truth when we see where all of those traditions are telling us the exact same thing. And that's where, like, oh yeah, we need to do that, we need to practice that, we need to understand that. um, so yeah, I wouldn't say I believe, but do I think that there might be some form of validity to a lot of those records? Perhaps. Do I think that there might be some, um, perhaps some of it might be anecdote, some of it might be analogy, right? Some of it might be pointing at a deeper mystical truth. This is what the Kabbalists discovered, that there were different layers to interpretation of the Torah, that there was one mundane layer which you can understand and read verbatim, but there were also many underlying deeper layers that as you went deeper, that they were reflecting some deeper spiritual truths that only the initiated were able to understand, or someone who had a deep inner experience and therefore was able to understand it in that way by actually practicing the teachings. Um, I'm not asking you if the Bible is the only truth. I'm only asking you if it's true. Yeah, that's a good question. I would say lots of it is true, but I also don't believe that we should um, say that any work or any text is infallible. I think that the church fathers and lots of teachers in that tradition also understand that teaching and the the tradition changes over time, that everything is fit to change by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, or for it's fit for correction, for further and further, uh, you could say purification, further and further honing in on the essence and the truth of what that message really is. I think the Mormons believe that as time progresses and time goes on, that we become closer and closer to God. So I wouldn't say that the Bible is the only truth. I would say that many aspects of it are true. But yes, we need to purify ourselves in all three of these arenas of our life. That is the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. So in every tradition, regardless of the tradition, they have techniques passed in which we can enable ourselves to do that. So when it comes to following just one tradition, I think that when you actually research, learn about, and understand the other traditions, we can actually have an even deeper and more profound understanding of whatever tradition it is that we abide in, or um, that we prefer. I believe the Bible teaches that if we overcome, we will become exactly like Jesus and sit on his throne. Yeah, so this is the teaching of theosis, or divinization. And I don't know if you're Protestant or if you're Catholic, but I really like this book that the Pope recently mentioned, which was the practice of the presence of God. And I also really like a lot of the Orthodox teachings on hesychasm and basically the Jesus prayer. I don't know if you're Protestant or what, but there's lots of good teachers in any tradition. So yeah, I think that the whole point of every religion is that we deify ourselves, we uplift ourselves more and more. Uh, that is a constant pursuit for us, that we should become perfect, that we should become more and more moral, more and more, uh, you could say in a Protestant terminology, more and more cooperative with the grace which has been bestowed upon us, and to, or you could say, to dive deeper and deeper into the faith, to strengthen one's faith. So that is the essence of, really in my mind, a lot of teachings. And the more you understand it in different paradigms, through different perspectives, the more and more you see holistically that we all come from nature, that we all have come here to simply find alignment, attunement with what the Greek philosophers called the highest good, which is also synonymous to nature, synonymous to reason. And this is what Jesus is called. Jesus is called the Logos incarnate. And Logos has many different definitions. You could say it's the lights of the intellect, it's word, it's the word, it's reasoning itself. And really it is none of those things and all of those things and transcendent above all of those things. Logos is the cosmos itself. And so that was who Jesus began to incarnate as. I don't believe that Jesus is God. I just believe he perfectly represented God. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think ultimately we also shouldn't get lost in semantics in a world that is so intricate and so beautiful and so complicated. So life, as the Taoists explain, is not so always so logical. It's fluid, it's flowing. Ultimately, the fact that we are here right now is somewhat of a miracle. If we think about who created all of this, and then who created that person who created that, we can do that infinitely. We can infinitely regress in that fashion. And then we get lost in this concept of infinity, and the fact that we are here right now becomes impossible, especially without diving deeper into this concept of infinity, which is what I like to meditate upon. This is the Ein Sof within the Torah, within the Old Testament, that this Kabbalistic term, which means the infinite, something infinite, I believe. Do you believe that Jesus was Yahweh in the flesh, or do you believe that no one can see God? That's a good question. I think that if we truly see God, then I don't know if we would transcend our humanly beingness, and so that in that way that we would no longer exist. But I don't see how it would not be possible that by God's power, by God's grace, by God's infinite power, or whatever you want to call it, that he would not be able to incarnate within the flesh as fully human while also being fully divine. Personally, I'm not Christian, honestly, but I don't see how that would not be possible. In whatever way you worship, whatever way you meditate, whatever way you pray, whatever way you fast or contemplate or whatever, as long as you are connecting to that infinite energy, to that one God, or that one beingness, or that one energy, then you are connected, you are plugged in. I believe we too should be able to say, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. I believe that's the purpose of humanity. Yes, and Jesus was a great teacher because he was the embodiment of, in some ways, perfection. He was one of the highest gurus. He lived up to the highest moral perfection. And one of his, well, really his main teaching was to love God and to love neighbor. And I think that, so if you are capable of doing that, then you are capable, right, of fulfilling all of the commandments. Not that you shouldn't follow the commandments, but that is the ultimate perfection of those commandments. That is the ultimate fulfillment of those commandments. Do you believe this is still true? Proverbs 28:9. He who turns away his ear from listening to the law, even his prayer is an abomination. Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to what I was just saying, that we can't not practice morality. We can't not practice certain laws which have been handed down, which guide us to live in accordance with reason, with nature, with the way in which God intended it. You know, the idea is in the Bible, the first sin was Well, when we left the Garden of Eden, which is essentially leaving nature. This is the teaching of many traditions, that is that we should try and return to nature. This return to nature is very powerful. And it's not that these laws or these commandments or this prayer is actually even different from that return to nature, because these laws, springing from very divinely inspired people, came out of what nature came out of that closeness and connection with nature. And these laws were actually designed and configured so that we can more accurately align our individual self with that nature, with that greater creation which God has designed so beautifully. Thank you, Bill Metz, for that kind compliment. Yeah, I hope so. I hope that this is the vision that God wishes for us. And we're diving today into very weird, strange territory as it regards AI and robotics. And I think that very soon we can be heading into either a very utopian or a very dystopian future. That is, with all this technology that we are creating, we have to ensure that our morality and our spiritual foundations are strong enough in order to withstand this great amount of material power with which we, and potentially abundance, hopefully, with which we can potentially be moving into, and not into a world that is more poor in not only the material realm but in the spiritual realm as well. So we're being bestowed great responsibility, because things can turn very, very dark with technology as it's advancing. So having a very, very strong foundation, spiritual foundation, to build that resolve for whatever is coming is very important. So definitely also subscribe and stick around for what is going on, so that hopefully I can help you, or that you can uplift yourself spiritually, and we can contemplate these things together, figure out these things together, so that we can not only help ourselves but help lead humanity into the good place and not the bad place. So yeah, okay, I think I'm gonna stop this live here. I might come back on live in maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, or maybe tonight. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Bill Metzger, for your questions and your comments and your interesting perspectives. And as I always say in my videos, ad astra. Bye bye. You're welcome, man. Bye bye.